Well, it's almost that time of year, folks. The Thanksgiving holiday is upon us, and that brings us to the Beef Sticks Survivor Theories.
Yes, indeed. It's the one time a year where Paystee and Fat Mack go head-to-head in pay-per-view predictions to see who's the most dominant in sports entertainment broadcasting.
Other than every other week when we go head-to-head in pay-per-view.
Yeah, it really is most weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's how WWE does it also.
We build ourselves around the methods of the best. That's how we function.
You know it. You know it. It's quite a time of year for everybody. COVID is hitting its second wind and it's coming in hard. You know, yay for that. Thanksgiving's coming up. I don't think anybody cares about it at this point. I don't know if anybody's doing it.
It almost feels like Christmas because for years and years I've wished, can't we just not do this? And finally we get to not do this.
Right. And for what's going to remain undisclosed reasons, Fat Mack has been stuck inside his house for the last week. You can do the math, folks.
Right.
So I've got all of my Christmas stuff put up and going good. So it is just like Christmas. It's the Christmas season around the Fat Mack household.
Mas fina cervezas.
Yes, very much. And it's okay. It's okay because you know what? The wrestling world itself is things are going good for the wrestling world until this second round hits the wrestling world also, because that's finna happen.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, folks.
Oh, yeah. Look at all the fans in attendance these days.
Yeah, we had the restart of MLW this week. Give it up to MLW. Way to go.
Whoop, whoop.
I know I haven't got to see it yet. Shame on me, but I am going to watch it this weekend.
Yes, me too.
NXT's got War Games coming up next week. That's always fun.
Winter is coming in 2 weeks.
Gosh.
In Dynamite, as Kenny Omega takes on John Moxley for the championship. It's going to be good, I think.
It should be a good match. Still, nobody knows why Moxley and Omega have a match on Dynamite randomly. But you know what? It's because winter is coming, damn it.
That's what Omega and Hangman Page fought at the pay-per-view for, Fat Mack.
For a Dynamite television match, because they don't get that often. I had to, I was busting out laughing so hard. I was listening to 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff and Conrad Thompson, and they were discussing Clash of Champions 91, I think. But anyways, Bischoff was talking about how they actually had a surprise that they didn't blow their load on. You know, it was a surprise that they didn't really talk about beforehand, and it ended up being really awesome. And what that was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who hadn't been in WCW for over a year, and last seen in American soil in WWE, was Dustin Runnels' tag team partner. And he said, you know, that's the way you do it. You don't go out here and if you have a surprise, don't go out here and build up the surprise and talk about the surprise like it's so goddamn amazing, and then you're gonna underdeliver. You just don't do it. If you have a surprise, leave it as that, a surprise, and then you over-deliver and people love it. And Conrad Thompson just sits there for a second and he's like, why don't you just say Tony at the end of that? It's like, okay, yes, Tony Khan, if you have a surprise, just leave it as a surprise and don't build it up because it's just going to fall flat.
Right, yeah. One thing you've learned, I think we've learned in the last 10 years, is you don't build up hype. Don't do that.
Not in this day and age, because it's hard. We've seen everything. So even if it's something amazing, if you build it up, it's going to fall flat.
And even if you drop just a tiny hint of a nugget that something's coming, people are going to blow it way the fuck out of proportion.
And no matter what world you live in, and I'm a huge Pac fan, Pac returning is not changing the pro wrestling world.
No.
We love him, but it's not happening. But Paystee, something that did change in the pro wrestling world this year is PWI. because for quite a while now, in the mid-90s, they started doing a PWI 500 where they ranked the top 500 pro wrestlers in the world, and these were men. And then they brought in the female 50, where they did the top 50 women in pro wrestling. And as women's wrestling has evolved, they ended up having to bump that up to the women's 100, which is awesome. Not only that, this year they changed the PWI 500 rankings to be intergender. Yes, it is kind of a men's ranking, but women who have intergender matches regularly also get on the card for the top 500, which is awesome. There were quite a few women in this year's PWI 500 rankings, which I thought was really cool. Well, Paystee, this year Pro Wrestling Illustrated introduced a brand new top 50 tag team list to coincide with their PWI 500 and Women's 100 rankings.
Ooh.
Now, similar to its other list, PWI Top 50 Tag Team Lists rankings pits WWE, AEW, New Japan, and Impact, who are all represented against each other. And the first ever honorees for this esteemed honor are FTR, who are made up of course, Dax Hardwood and Cash Wheeler. And they took the inaugural crown to top PWI's tag team rankings in this brand new era of PWI.
Yes, they did. And I don't necessarily agree with it, but I also can't really argue it. I just don't think that they've showed us enough outside of WWE yet. That's where I sit.
I mean, other than their match against the Bucks.
Well, yeah, that one match, but I don't.
Which wasn't in this rankings.
List.
Yeah, and that was not in this rankings. Let's be honest. I haven't got the physical magazine yet, so I'm not sure what their rankings took hold of. But it usually takes at least a month to compile a wrestling or to compile a magazine in general. So I doubt that match was on there. Let's be honest.
And of course. FTR, never to be few on words, both had things to say. Cash commented stating, "Love us, hate us, agree, disagree. Everyone is entitled to their opinions. That doesn't take away the pride we take in our craft. It doesn't take away the passion we put into our profession. In our hearts, we're the best tag team on earth. So this is special to us."
And of course, Dax followed that up with, "Every decision we've ever made has ultimately been about our legacy. Grand Slam champions, an emotional career-defining match at Full Gear, and the #1 ranked tag team, all just in 2020. Thank you to everyone who's been on this ride. This is the stuff I live for. Top guys, out." Now, Paystee, the top 10 of this list is been leaked before the actual magazine. And it proceeds as follows. You want to take it from the number 10?
Oh, yeah. Number 10 is Roppongi 3K's Show and Yo.
Oh, can't argue
I'm
that.
glad they cracked the 10.
We also got the first women in the top 10, the Kabuki Warriors, Asuka and Kairi Sane. I find it hard to argue that either.
Yeah. And then for number 8, we have the New Day, Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, and Big E.
I'd probably personally put them higher, but that's just me. Another group I'd probably put higher personally, Lucha Bros, Rey Fenix and Penta El Zero M.
I would put them higher, but then at the same point, I look back at 2020 and they didn't have a big year.
No, but they did have great matches. And for some reason now Penta's got another new name all of a sudden out of nowhere.
Does
Penta El Zero Miedo. So they just added Miedo to the M, which I think El Zero M works better. But whatever.
Why couldn't it just be Penta? You know what I mean?
Why couldn't it just be Penta? WWE
and then to
does
explain where the rest of it went, you just say Penta space gone. Like it's all...
That is some of the best shit I've actually ever heard.
It's so AEW.
I would love that.
Not
Pentagon, just Penta space gone. I love it. I want that. That is some awesome shit, Paystee. Oh, you should get money for that.
I should. Well, coming in at number 6 is the Gorillas of Destiny. Tama Tonga, Tongaroa, and Tongaloa.
All right, New Japan's got some love twice already. We got the Street Profits in at number 5, Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins.
I'm so happy they made the list. I love them. Coming in at number 4 is one I know you love and are happy they made the list. It's the North with Ethan Page and Josh Alexander reigning supreme at the top of Impact Wrestling.
I ain't even going to lie. I'm happy they're in the top 5, but I would have put them higher than number 4, but that's just me personally. Number 3 is a tag team that made a lot of noise this year and is continuing with one of the best storylines in pro wrestling, the Golden Role Models, Bayley and Sasha Banks.
Do they take golden showers?
Paystee, that's about as rude as JR this week's Dynamite.
Oh my
he
God.
was talking about, I don't know if you're laughing about the same thing I'm talking
Yeah.
about, but they're talking about the women's, they have a women's wrestling appreciation thing that's called Wrestling Heels. And it's
AEW heels.
Yeah, so it's women fans of wrestling can get together and discuss it without the misogynistic assholes.
I wonder
men
if they have
wrestling-
bake sales.
You knew exactly what I was going to say. Wasn't that so fucking shitty of
It
him?
was so shitty.
Oh God! And I haven't heard any. That's one I haven't heard any kickback online about. So I don't know if anybody else is pissed about it other than you and I. But
It happens so often. I mean, what more can be done about it, really?
you think they have bakes? Get the fuck you, Jim Ross. God, I love the man, but he is so. He's an old man. He's an old white Southern man, and man, does that come across more often than it should.
Yeah.
Oh, where are we at?
How hard is it to just not say those things? Like, seriously.
Right? They need to have Excalibur there, just with a fucking just a tiny a Swiss Army knife, a little pen knife, and just jab him when he starts saying those things.
I'm sure it happened. Because it got pretty quiet right after he said that.
Oh, it did. Well, how do you follow that up? I think it was Excalibur who said something like, "Well, I don't know, JR," and then just all together. Like, what the fuck? What kind of question is that? Do you think they have fucking bake sales? Get the fuck out of here, JR. Oh, I love JR. I do. I love the fucker.
Yes. Okay. Coming in at number 2, Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page. I don't know if I'd put them that high.
Yeah, another group. I don't know how they got
They're
to number
good.
2.
I think they'd still be in my top 10, but I don't think they'd be that high. I also don't think Bayley and Banks would be in my top 10 list because they're far better split up than they were as a team.
Well, see, I was just going to say I think both Bayley and Banks and Page and Alexander would go before Omega and Page for me personally. But and then, of course, we said number 1, FTR, Dax Hardwood, Cash Wheeler. Way to go. It's awesome that first of all, it's awesome that PWI, which is a mainly a print publication, they do have an online subscription option, and I'm sure a lot of people use that, but they also have a print option. And not only are they big enough that they are, I think, the only pro wrestling magazine still circulating to this day, but they're coming up with new and better gimmicks like this. Plus,
to this day, yes, but Wrestle Talk started putting out a print magazine like last year.
Well, that's not America. They don't count.
I'm sure PWI is not America.
Yeah, it is.
Oh.
It's from Kappa Publishing.
Okay.
They're out in New York.
Well, isn't Kappa a Japanese monster?
No. But nonetheless, what I was going to say is, luckily, they've done so well in the last few years that they're actually adding 2 more issues of their magazine per year. So if you're a subscriber like Fat Mack is...
Did they invent 2 more months?
You're going to get 2 more... No, they do 6 magazines a year. They do every other month.
I guess.
So now they're going to do 8 magazines a year, which is awesome. Nice. If you're a subscriber like Fat Mack, it's like, not only is that awesome for a pro wrestling fan, but that's awesome for fans of printed media, which there isn't a lot of printed media that is surviving nowadays to know that there's still some growing and thriving.
Well, that just leaves one burning question, Fat Mac.
Yes.